dropped in, yes, but I don't see much improvement for the rest of the season.
Right now, we now move on to the relegation zone. You can see that graphic there in front of you, the bottom 8 or 9, whatever it is. So, no surprise that the 3 bottom teams are the 3 were promoted last season. But I presume the surprise is that Luton seem to be making the best of it, because when they came up first, they were getting absolutely hockeyed and hammered. But they have turned around. They're actually showing a bit of guts and a bit of fight. While Sheffield United, to me, are gone. And Burnley are just completely open. They can't defend to save their lives. But Luton are at least they're showing a bit of battle. Now, the big interesting thing there, if people can add up, is Everton. If you look at the results, they should be on 26 points, would be safely mid-table. But can you explain? They got a 10-point deduction. Can you explain that there? Because I don't fully understand it.
They got a 10-point deduction, Paul, because of financial fair play. Basically, I think what happened is that they lost more money than they brought in, or something. I think that's how it works. Basically, they made it. They obviously there's this new rules that came in there a number of years ago about financial fair play, where you can't lose more money than what you bring in. I think it's something like that what happened. Yeah. And Everton got caught with that. They were I think it was one charge they had, and they got a 10-point deduction. Now, the interesting thing with the Everton statement was, with Manchester City, I think it was a little hint to what they were frustrated about. Everton, I think, had one charge. Manchester City were charged with financial fair play 115 charges. Now,
are these on the Premiership or are they in Europe? The Premiership is on, you know.
In the Premiership, the Premier League, the Premier League have brought 115 charges against Manchester City, and they brought charges against Everton. Now, Everton have been punished, but Everton feel that because they are not the league champions, they are not in Europe, that they are
not the European champions, they're not the World Cup champions.
That's right. That comes into it as well. They're not being managed by Pep Guardiola either. I think Everton are. I think even this time they look keenly to what happens in future events or something like that. I think is so Everton are going to be very interesting. I don't think even the points that the punishment for City isn't even going to happen this season. It could happen next season, and I think many people feel with the top-notch lawyers that Manchester City will have. They won't be punished as much as they should be, and other people's view. And there are all
so in fairness, if we go back to Everton, they can consider themselves very unlucky to be getting 10-point deduction, because I know experts in the financial, but we do know most of the teams. It's very complicated. There's money going in and money going out, and I'm not making any accusations, but they're very, very unlucky. Are they just the first one to walk in the trap doors to get this deduction?
Oh, very much so, and I have to hold my hands up now. Being a Chelsea supporter, we've I suppose what we could say, we've tried to work around financial fair play. We've given the players these big long contracts over 8 years, where the payments is stretched out over a number of years. So on the books, we're balancing the books, but we have to pay. Say for example, Mudryk, we paid nearly 100 million euros for him. That means we have to pay with the installments. We have to pay 10 million one year, 20 million next year, maybe 10 million the following year, and spread it out. So that's how the books have been balanced. But eventually,
go back to Everton. Sorry, no, just go back to stick on the topic. Their form was fairly good, but they've lost the last 3 games in a row, and with that 10-point deduction, that's going to drag them back into, because it wears you down when you know you should be higher up the table, and their form is now starting to fall away with 3 defeats in a row.
Well, I think they got the man that can get him out with the mess they're in, and that's Sean Dyche. I think, as you said yourself, they were in good form, but they've slipped back an awful lot in the last couple of weeks. They lost the last 3-0 at away to Wolves there. Very bad defeat. And they have a striker there, Cavaloon. He can never keep himself fit, but hopefully he'll be able to help him out and drag him out of that predicament they're in. I, to be honest with you, Paul, do feel Everton will kick on again in the second half of the season. I do think they'll stay up. I think the way the relegation zone is at the moment, Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield. I think Burnley and Sheffield United are as good as gone. I think Luton, with a game in hand, they've got some hope because they're showing a lot more fight. And Burnley are very naive.
And we'll be in Nottingham Forest. It was in October. Luton were at the City Ground. They were 2-0 down with 15 minutes to go. Didn't bury, and they came back and they drew the game. That was the first sign. I said to myself, right, Luton have got something about them. There's a bit of fight and a bit of character. And that's what we're down in relegation battle and all. That's what anything, that battle and fighting spirit, you know.
That's fine, and it's been brilliant. They lost 1-0 away to Manchester United. They've had some very close runs with the big teams. Man City only won 2-1. Arsenal only won 3-2, I think it was.
Yeah.
Chelsea, myself, I know we were 3-0 up at the time. They made a right good comeback in the last 10 minutes. If the game had been played 10 more minutes, they could have even got an equaliser. So they've shown some great spirit. Of course, the captain collapsed in the pitch there away to Bournemouth. That's their game in hand, Paul. The game had to be abandoned. I think it was 1-1 at the
Bournemouth.
time.
Is that against Bournemouth?
Bournemouth away, that was their. You see there in the graphic, Bournemouth have 19 games played as well. So I think that's their game in hand. Yeah. So
no. Sorry,
Paul,
sorry, no.
If you look at Brentford, fall short.
Sorry, no, for cutting across you. Brentford, they're 5 games in a row lost. They were promoted about 3 or 4 years ago. I thought they would be in trouble straight away, but they had 2 or 3 good years. But they seem to be in real trouble this year with 5 games in a row lost.
Yeah, Paul, they've hit a bad patch, and I think they're going to have a couple of players lost now to that for a couple of nations. So it's even worse for them. I just think they lack a goal scorer, and I think Ivan Toney, he's supposed to be coming back, I think, next week after he's banned. Now, what sort of shape is he going to be in? He's not going to be definitely match fit, because I think for a couple of months he had to train on his own. He wasn't even allowed even near in the stadium or train with the team. So I think he was allowed in the last couple of months to do that. He's been missing for over half a season. I think it's before even in the last season he couldn't play. So what sort of shape he's going to be? He's been linked actually, funny enough, with Arsenal, and I think, to be honest with you, now I suppose loyalty goes out the window in professional sports, but I think, to be honest with you, he owes Brentford a bit of help, because they've stood by him. Now that could come from nothing if a big club like Arsenal come in, or certain other clubs come in for him. Because Ivan Toney is he's one of the main reasons why Brentford stayed in the Premier League for this long. But what sort of form he's going to come back in, I honestly don't know. But they really do need him now, because as you said, they're right 4 points. And I know they have a game, same amount of games played as Luton Town. They're 4 points away from it, but they're getting a little bit too close for their liking at the one time. I think Thomas Frank is a very good manager. He seems to be a very good man manager as well. I think they need a few results to keep themselves away from that relegation as well, Paul, because they're falling like a stone. They've lost 5 games in a row. I don't know who they have in the cup. They might give them some relief, some breathing space, regrouped in for the league. But yeah, I do think, though, with the bottom 3 as it is, Paul, I do think that the 3 teams that are there will go down. I think Forest have turned the corner. The last 2 games.
I'm glad you come to that. Now, I was waiting to come to that. We had
a
terrible run there in October, November, early December. We played 8 matches. We lost 7, drew 1. And even though I thought it was a poor decision, but I suppose at that result they had to get rid of the manager, Steve Cooper. I suppose, even though I didn't think it was a good, but they brought in a new manager. And of course, it's called the bounce. 2 wins out of 3, away to Newcastle, at home to Manchester United, which I didn't expect. Now the question is, Noel, will after 3 or 4 weeks will they revert to type and go back to playing the rubbish they were playing, or will they kick on? So what are your thoughts on that when the bounce is over?
I think Nuno, funny enough, is probably his manager that suits that team. I think he's very. I think he's been a little bit unfairly called cautious. I think Nuno is a very good manager. I think it didn't work out with him at Tottenham, and I think he's been scarred by a lot of people's opinion. But I think if you look at the job he did at Wolves, maybe similar type. I'm not talking. Obviously, Wolves don't have the European history yet, but I'm talking.
No. If you go back to the 1950s, Wolves were one of the first teams to compete in Europe, and they're an outstanding team. I know that's a long time ago, but they do have a history, and Wolves were one of the great clubs too, in fairness, and we have to be fair about that.
Yeah. I suppose your history is probably more recent. You could say.
It was only 40 years ago, but it's more recent than like me anyway.
Yeah. But I do think he. Maybe similar size ground, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Wolves is maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But I do think, though, that he can do a good job with him. He brought him up from the Championship, and he actually got him into Europe as well. And I think he finished 7th or 8th. He's finished 7th or 8th. Now his last season, I think they finished 13th or flirting with relegation. And I think I think he knew he was gone. I think that himself and the owners came to the agreement that I think his contract was up. And I think the warrants is going to be renewed. I don't think he was officially sacked, if you get me, but he more or less was. But he went to Tottenham, I think the following season. It didn't work out for him. I think he got sacked by November. I think Conte then came in after him. I think he went out to Saudi Arabia as well, and he's come back now to the Premier League. And I think he's a good practical manager. I like him as a manager. I think he comes across good. He comes across well. I think he's a good manager. I think he has gotten a tune out of the report for the last couple of weeks. I think he did lose the first game, if I'm not mistaken, where he went away to Newcastle. Chris Wood, go back to his his old team. I think he scored one league goal for him, and then he ends up scoring a hat trick against him. So I think he'll use Chris Wood, I think, in a lot better way than maybe the Cooper did. I think Wood will probably score a lot more goals.
Can I come across there now before we finish up? There is a background to Nottingham Forest behind the scenes, in my personal opinion, and I would have an interest in it, are an absolute shambles. And I'll give you 2 examples.
Yeah.
At the last day of the transfer market, they bought 9 players. Now, to me, there were some people saying that was a good thing. To me, that was an absolute disaster. That was like going into a field trying to shoot a crow with a blindfold on and a shotgun. They were just firing pellets left, right, and centre. It was a pure panic buying to buy 9 players on the last day. And the second thing is, they bought a player from Norwich called Abby Daly. He's a defender. Norwich in the Championship. Yeah. I think he cost 20 million or something around that. He hasn't got near to kicking a ball. So to me, sorry, no, just before I finish up, and I'll let you come in then. So behind the scenes, they're an absolute shambles, and that's the proof of it. And this manager come in, maybe they get these short-term bounce, but unless that thing is sorted out behind the scenes, there's over 32 players in the squad, which is way too many. And if that shambles is sorted out, you might get a short-term bounce, but I would be afraid to become a shambles on the pitch before the season is out. What are your thoughts?
Well, that is the real danger part. I was actually going to use Abba Daly as an example. He's an Irish international. He was playing well at Norwich. He was one of their first choice centre backs. He goes to Forest and he doesn't kick a ball. No, I'm not having to go at the player at all, but I think it's outrageous that when you buy a player for £20 million sterling, that you don't play him. Particularly for a club like Forest, in terms of that's big money for a team that's in 15th, spending 20 million on a player and hardly playing him. That's a big problem.
Not playing him. Not playing him. Yeah. I think, as you said yourself, I think the owners are based. I think Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane. I think Roy Keane said in some podcast that he does with Gary Neville that he didn't like the vibes from the owners. No, I think that's Roy Keane's words, not mine. Yeah.
I think I think, as you said yourself, they are being run very, very poorly, you could say. And I think if you're not careful, Paul, maybe not this season, but in future seasons, if you don't get a handle on that, you could go down, and the financial state of the club could be under pressure. Because, if Chelsea have been looked at for financial fair play in terms of our squad, we've got similar squad to yourselves. Eventually, our Forest bringing in as much money as is going out as well. So that's something that has to be considered as well. Because if they're going to clamp down on Everton, Man City, probably Chelsea as well, I hold my hands up on that. They're going to look at Forest as well, particularly with the size of the squad, Paul, and the amount of money you're spending, and particularly where you are in the league. Because the worst thing that could happen to Forest now for years, it took Steve Cooper to get you up to the Premier League, and it was something like, I think it was
23 years
nearly over 23 years, yeah. So you are in danger if you do go down. I think you will survive this year, Paul, just my own personal opinion.
Yeah.
But in future seasons, if you do go down, it could be that long again, because financially you could take a hit. You might have to release or let go of all these players that you spend big money on, and all those wages are going out the door as well, because they're being paid big bucks as well, Premier League wages. So I think something that has to be looked at, and something that has to be looked into very carefully. And you would hope that they get a handle on this. And I think Nuno is the man to keep you up, but he can't control the board, what they do either. Like, to be honest with you, because
it's the owner. No, he's the owner. He owns Olympiacos. Now I know, and behind the scenes, I'm only go watching as an observer. There was huge debts there. I think we're told that he's covered up the debts, but there's a lot of stuff going on. When they sold Johnson to Spurs, was it for 40 million or 45 million? I believe Nottingham Forest took out a loan. And Spurs, and allegedly, that's what I could come across, and the Spurs were actually paying back the loan. Now, to me, this is crazy stuff. But there's something not right. It's not right behind the scenes, and I don't care what club you are. I don't care what sport you're in. If you're not right behind the scenes, eventually that will show on the pitch.
It will, Paul, and eventually, it'll come to a situation where you have to sell these players, because it happened, if you're not mistaken, Leeds maybe 20 years ago, where they bought players for too much. And I know under David Levy they got to the Champions League semi-final. Would have been a couple of years, I think by 2004, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up getting relegated, and it took them for a long, long, long time. They went down to League One, the bad old days. And Forest have been there, and I don't know how Forest have been in League One over the last 20 or 30 years, but clubs like two big clubs in that part of England, Nottingham Forest and Leeds, it's happened to you in the past. So